Have you ever, like, run into an ex at a coffee shop or a party, and you just smile a little too brightly, and you're like, oh my gosh, it is so great to see you. I am doing amazing. I literally don't even think about what happened anymore.
Oh, yeah, and you walk away sweating.
Exactly. You walk away and realize that by aggressively announcing how much you don't think about them, you just prove to everyone in the room, and honestly to yourself, that you are just entirely obsessed.
Right. It's the ultimate psychological tell. Like, the louder the insistence that you've moved on, the more obvious it is that you are desperately treading water.
Welcome to a brand new deep dive. Today we are looking at what might actually be the greatest musical monument to that exact lie.
It really is.
Yeah, so our material today is this sprawling, incredibly detailed 10-part analytical syllabus. And it is entirely focused on dissecting just one single piece of music. It's Bob Dylan's 1989 track most of the time, from his album Oh Mercy.
It is such a remarkable document to dig into, too, because we're taking a song that, well, on the surface, it sounds like a pretty straightforward, moody reflection on a breakup.
Right.
But we're going to examine how it actually functions as this, like, masterclass in human psychology.
Because this really isn't just a deep dive into Bob Dylan's discography. It's a roadmap of self-deception. We're going to look at how we curate our own memories, how we try to micromanage our grief, and really how the very language we use to claim we are completely over it is usually the exact mechanism that betrays our lingering pain.
Oh, absolutely. It's an exploration of the sheer, like, psychological calorie burn that's required to maintain a facade of competence and, what happens when that mask inevitably starts to slip.
So before we jump into the actual text, I want you to think about the last time you had a massive setback in your own life.
Yeah, put yourself in that headspace.
Right. And it doesn't even have to be a breakup. Maybe it was a career failure or a really bad falling out with a friend. You probably put on a brave face. You told your friends you were fine. You told the mirror you were fine.
Over and over, exactly.
How much exhausting energy did it actually take to maintain that act? And did your constant, unprompted reassurance that you were fine actually end up giving away the truth?
It almost always does.
It does. So hold on to that feeling.
Yeah.
Because that is the exact territory we are entering today. Let's start right with the text, the lyrics themselves. To understand the emotional reality of this song, we really have to look at the primary defense mechanism the speaker uses. It's the title phrase itself, right? Most of the time.
Yeah, and what's so brilliant here is that the song uses denial not just as a theme, but as its actual architectural structure.
Wow.
Right. So throughout the track, the speaker repeatedly declares that he is doing great. He says he's clear-headed, he's keeping track, he can survive, he can endure.
He's checking all the boxes.
Exactly. He's declaring that he has achieved total emotional distance. But he attaches this built-in loophole to the end of every single claim, which is the phrase most of the time. And there's this concept in our syllabus called temporal modesty and quantified emotion.
Okay, let's unpack quantified emotion because that phrase really struck me when I was reading the source.
It's a great term.
Yeah, because by using a mathematical qualifier like most, he's actually implying there is a very specific hidden margin where he is explicitly not in control, right?
Precisely. Because, most does not mean always.
Right.
By claiming the majority of his time is fine, he is inadvertently acknowledging a remainder, a fraction of his day where he is completely falling apart.
The unsaid sometimes.
Exactly. This gap between his declared control the most and his implied vulnerability, sometimes, is exactly where the emotional truth of the song lives. Every single reassurance he offers actually manufactures a brand new doubt in the listener's mind.
And the lyrics show us this really fascinating process, what the syllabus calls semantic drift.
Oh, yeah, the repetition.
Yeah, he repeats that phrase most of the time, relentlessly. And, what happens when you repeat a word over and over? It loses its original meaning.
Wow, it totally dissolves.
Right. So what starts out in the first verse, sounding like a really confident, kind of casual disclaimer, just slowly erodes under the weight of its own repetition. By the final verse, it doesn't sound confident at all. It sounds like a desperate confession.
It's the rhetorical overcompensation giving him away. Think about it. If I tell you I'm fine, you believe me. If I tell you I'm fine 20 times in 4 minutes, you're going to call an ambulance.
Exactly. You're going to think I'm having a breakdown. And that brings up this other concept from the material called negative presence. Because when you actually listen to the lyrics, the woman he's supposedly over barely even exists in the text.
That is such a crucial observation. She is a total asymmetry in the narrative. We get, like, no physical description of her.
Yeah.
We get no backstory of the relationship. We don't know why they broke up. There's no big cinematic betrayal scene or anything. She exists almost entirely through negation.
Just a blank space.
Right. She is simply the void that he is supposedly not thinking about.
So if I'm understanding this analysis right, the song isn't actually about her at all.
I would argue it has literally nothing to do with her. It is entirely a closed loop about the speaker's own struggle to, regulate his inner life.
Huh.
The drama isn't a plot about two lovers. The drama is the grammar of his own insistence. Dylan isn't giving us a story. He's giving us a pattern of obsessive thought.
Which honestly makes me wonder about the speaker's intent here. Like, is this guy just consciously lying to us? Does he know he's a wreck and he's just trying to save face? Or does he genuinely believe his own script?
Well, I wouldn't call it a conscious lie because, a lie implies a deliberate attempt to deceive an audience.
Right, like a con.
Exactly. But here, he is trying to survive his own mind. It's a coping mechanism. He is literally trying to speak his own stability into existence.
Fake it till you make it.
Basically, he thinks if he says, I don't even think about her enough times, it will magically become true. But he's discovering in real time, like line by line, that language is just incapable of doing that heavy lifting.
Yeah.
His logical brain can function, but his emotional reality just totally refuses to integrate.
So it's outward competence, but inward devastation.
Exactly that.
Now, if his words are failing him, if the lyrics are this crumbling facade of self-control, you would expect his voice to give him away too.
Naturally.
And that leads us to the sound of the song itself. Our materials dive super deeply into the sonic psychology of the track. The music and the vocal delivery essentially act as a polygraph test for the lyrics.
They do. And to really understand that, we have to look at the performance world of the Oh Mercy album.
Right, the production context.
Yeah, so this was produced in New Orleans by Daniel Lanois, along with Malcolm Byrne and a very specific set of session musicians. And together they created this incredibly distinct nocturnal mood.
It sounds swampy. Like when I listen to it, it sounds like a humid night where the air is really thick and nothing is really moving.
That's actually the perfect description. It's an atmosphere of what the syllabus calls sonic suspension.
Sonic suspension.
Right. The bass is heavy. The guitars echo and hover in the background. The band completely refuses to rush toward any kind of, musical catharsis.
Or big crescendos.
Exactly. They just sustain this hovering, unresolved state for the entire track. And it creates an environment that inherently feels compromised. The music doesn't support the speaker's claims of stability at all. It actually hears through the speaker.
See, I have a hard time buying that a lack of musical emotion automatically equals sadness, though.
Tell me why.
Well, I usually think of Heartbreak songs as needing a massive theatrical climax to feel genuine. Like, think about the classic 90s Celine Dion power ballads, right? You need the big swelling strings, the dramatic bridge, the singer dropping to their knees in the rain and belting out the high note. If he's supposedly devastated in this song, why shouldn't I just take his calm mumbling at face value? Like, why isn't he screaming?
Because screaming is easy.
Really?
Yeah, screaming is a performance. What Dylan is doing here is utilizing the mechanism of anti-melodrama.
Anti-melodrama, okay.
Right. If you cry and scream in a song, you are begging the listener for sympathy. You are basically demanding that they see your pain. Dylan actively avoids that. There are no explosive climaxes, no overt weeping in his delivery. The vocal performance is steeped in absolute tonal discipline.
Tonal discipline.
He delivers these lines almost like spoken word assertions, very close to the microphone, very restrained.
So wait, the lack of spectacle is exactly what makes the sadness credible?
Yes. Because excessive emotional insistence can feel manipulative.
Oh, that's true.
Right. Think about times someone has tried way too hard to convince you they were deeply hurt. Your guard immediately goes up. This song asks to be believed specifically because it does not beg to be believed. That aesthetic modesty is why it lands so deeply.
It forces you to lean in. Like, as a listener, you're constantly straining to hear the cracks in his voice.
Exactly.
The analysis actually calls it detecting the tonal slippage. You aren't hearing the pain as an outright declaration. You're hearing the pain as the immense pressure behind the speech. You hear the effort it takes for him to keep his voice that steady.
That is the credibility of restraint. The composure itself is the tragedy.
Oh, wow. The composure is the tragedy. I love that. So we have this incredibly calm delivery masking an agonizing subtext. That basically means our narrator is an unreliable witness to his own life.
Yes, completely unreliable.
Which takes us into this totally fascinating territory of how the speaker manipulates his own memories.
The concept of self-revision, we tend to think of memory like a computer hard drive.
Right, like a file you open.
Yeah, you click a file and you passively watch a recording of the past. But psychology tells us that memory is actually active. The speaker is actively negotiating and rewriting his past to make it emotionally survivable.
He's trying to manage the narrative.
He's attempting what psychologists call abstract management. He wants to deal with the breakup in the abstract, like, we had our time, it's ended, I'm moving forward. That's abstract management. But what ruins his plan is embodied memory.
Embodied memory, which is sensory recall, right?
Exactly. The body remembers what the disciplined mind is desperately trying to neutralize.
Oh, man.
You can logically tell yourself you are totally over someone, but then you smell a specific brand of coffee, or you feel a sudden drop in temperature that reminds you of a specific Tuesday, and your body just enters a physiological state of grief. The past isn't a story he can put on a shelf. It's a sensory pressure that keeps ambushing him.
It's like curating your own history on social media.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right. You go back, you delete the photos of your ex, you untag yourself from their posts. You are trying to project this image that you have a clean narrative identity. You are trying to use abstract management on your own digital footprint.
Right, you're trying to crop the past to fit the person you want to be today.
But the very act of scrolling back 3 years through your feed to find and delete those photos proves that you are entirely trapped by the past. You are stuck curating your history rather than actually being free from it.
That is a phenomenal modern parallel. And what makes this deep dive so rich is that this idea of manipulation and shifting memory isn't just happening inside the song. It happened to the song itself over time.
Yes.
Our materials spend a lot of time on the song's afterlife and this practice of comparative listening.
Right, because if you're a modern listener, you probably don't just know that one swampy 1989 Oh Mercy version.
No, not at all.
We have officially circulated alternate takes now. The Bootleg series, Volume 8. Telltale Signs released a couple of radically different versions of this track. Plus, a lot of people know it because it was featured so prominently in the movie High Fidelity.
And each of these versions fundamentally changes the truth of the performance.
How so?
Well, on the Bootleg series, there's a stripped-down acoustic version where the tempo is agonizingly slow. In that version, the facade sounds completely shattered from the very first note.
Oh, wow.
Then there's another alternate take that's almost upbeat, almost a shuffle. And in that version, the speaker sounds manic, like almost unhinged in his denial.
And when you place the song in the High Fidelity soundtrack, it shifts again. Now you're interpreting it relationally. You're thinking about John Cusack's character, Rob Gordon, who makes these top 5 lists of his breakups and neurotically obsessives over his romantic history. The context completely changes the shade of the lie.
It does. And it raises an important question about how we consume catalog music over decades. When you detach a song from its original album and its original sonic environment, do you distort its truth?
I mean, I would think it proves its structural durability.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you can play it slow and acoustic, or upbeat and manic, or stick it in a 90s rom-com, and the core emotional argument still works, I mean, that means the architecture of the song is bulletproof.
That's the consensus of the syllabus, actually. A song that survives transplantation like that has a core tension, that declared distance versus the implied pain, that remains legible no matter the tempo, the instruments, or the cultural framing.
Right.
The meaning might shift slightly, but the structural integrity of that emotional lie holds up perfectly.
So we've looked at the shifting versions of the song, we've looked at the shifting memories of the speaker, we've dissected the careful sonic restraint. But here is the ultimate question the syllabus builds toward. How does a song built entirely on evasion, loopholes, and contradictions end up being so profoundly honest?
It all comes down to what they call truth by contradiction. The analysis makes this brilliant, totally counterintuitive point, which is that the lyric becomes truthful precisely because it contradicts itself.
The evasion is the evidence.
Yes. The speaker says he's fine, but the circular, obsessive pattern of his words proves he is incomplete. His claims of total control sit right next to massive signs of psychological pressure.
That's a double track.
It creates a double track of meaning, exactly. We are conditioned to think that emotional truth arrives as a factual, accurate report, like I am sad because X happened. But sometimes, emotional truth only arrives through the failure of the report.
Oh, that's heavy.
The speaker is trapped inside the contradiction, desperately trying to make it make sense. But the composition, the song as a whole, is standing outside of him, observing him with immense empathy.
So the song is basically arguing that being a walking contradiction isn't a failure to heal. It is the exact definition of healing.
That is the core philosophical takeaway here. It maps perfectly onto the modern psychological concept of nonlinear recovery. When we talk about trauma or grief, we usually imagine it as a straight line.
Right, like steps. You get hurt, you mourn, you heal, you move on.
But this song captures the long middle phase of healing.
The aftermath. The part nobody makes movies about.
Exactly. It validates intermittence and recurrence. It's that state where your daily functionality has absolutely returned. You are going to work, you are making dinner, you are laughing with your friends.
You're fine most of the time.
You are functioning in the vast majority of intervals. But complete emotional closure simply has not arrived.
It avoids the false drama of total victory or total breakdown, which is just so incredibly human. I mean, think about your own life for a second. How often do you demand total, permanent victory over a struggle?
Way too often.
We expect our minds to be like a clean X-ray, showing the bone has perfectly healed with no scarring. But partial recovery is the most deeply human state there is. We are all living in that most of the time space. You can be fine for weeks, and then one afternoon a specific song comes on the radio where you smell that specific coffee we talked about, and you just have to pull your car over to cry.
And that doesn't mean you're broken. It just means healing is irregular.
Exactly.
What's fascinating here is how one tiny temporal qualifier, the word most, manages to organize an entire philosophy of grief.
Yeah.
Because if the song was called I Don't Think About Her Always, it would be false. No one is ever entirely free of their past.
Right.
And if it was called I Don't Think About Her Ever, well, it would be pure melodrama. Most is what makes it undeniably true.
To wrap up, we've taken quite a journey through this syllabus today. We started by dissecting a seemingly simple lyric and found a really complex psychological defense mechanism.
We sure did.
We looked at the undeniable power of sonic restraint and how, not screaming can be the loudest cry of all. We uncovered the unreliability of our own curated memories and finally arrived at the messy, profound reality of nonlinear recovery.
It's honestly a masterclass in how art holds up a mirror to our own coping mechanisms. It shows us that our desperate attempts to sound untroubled are often the exact route by which our trouble becomes audible to the rest of the world.
But I want to leave you with a final lingering thought drawn from a very subtle detail in our material today. The syllabus documents a very bounded, specific live history for this track.
Yeah.
Bob Dylan only played most of the time, 36 times in concert, entirely between October 1989 and May 1992.
Yeah.
Despite its massive cultural afterlife, despite the critical acclaim, it never became a permanent fixture in his set lists.
Which is fascinating, considering it is widely regarded as one of his absolute masterpieces from that era.
Exactly. So I really want you to ponder why. If this song requires the singer to inhabit such a delicate, suspended state of denial, if it requires balancing outward composure with inward devastation, is it possible that performing this specific architecture of self-deception live, night after night, is simply too psychologically exhausting to maintain?
I mean, it takes an immense, draining amount of energy to constantly hold back the tide.
Think about the masks you wear in your own life to appear fine to your coworkers or your family. Think about the energy it takes to keep the cracks in your foundation hidden. How long can you keep up the performance before you just have to drop it from the set list?
Yeah, you can't play it forever.
You can't. You can patch the cracks, you can tell everyone the building is completely secure, but the walls still remember the weight they are carrying. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.